Another day of sports talk with Rowdtime. We came prepared today. We got the Rowdtime merch on today. You know, hold on. Do I have some glasses over here? Hold on.
Oh no.
We gotta have some glasses over here, right? Hold on.
Uh-oh. Pulling out the shades.
I don't have yellow ones. I don't have yellow ones, but we got some red ones. We got some red ones for the Koolaid
red
rage.
and yellow. Look at Roshocker.
How we doing? How we doing, everybody?
I'm feeling left out. I'm gonna have to give you some
man.
shades.
We
too.
got Rowdtime. We got Roshocker. We got Koolaid. Let's get it, guys. So, we're gonna, like I said, this is always gonna be something that we're gonna continue to upgrade on, things that we're gonna continue to build on, and make better for you guys with the sports talk. Add some different topics between the different sports. Kind of playing around with the different things in OBS and Streamlabs, to see what we can do to be able to kind of make it look and flow better as well. For now, we're gonna go ahead and kick off with some topics. I know free agency continues to be busy, so we're gonna continue to look at that as well. So we got free agency here. One of the big things today, between the last, I want to say, hold on, let's see. One of the big things that I've noticed is tight ends. Tight ends have been going off the board quick. We've been seeing a lot of tight ends. We obviously start off with the big name the other day, a couple days ago. We've seen Jonnu Smith go off the board, Hunter Henry, all to the same team. Patriots loaded up on their tight ends, something that they're used to in the past. But we got a lot of tight ends off the board. We got, Kyle Rudolph just went off the board today. Jared Cook, Gerald Everett went off the board. So, I mean, we see a lot of these names starting to fly off. Tyler Eifert is still there. We know he's pretty injury prone. Darren Fells was released today, and then there was a trade between the Patriots and their tight end to be able to, obviously they didn't need another tight end, so, but they went ahead and made that move over there. So that, it's definitely interesting to see a lot of teams loading up on tight ends right now. So who wants to go ahead and kick this off with kind of their thoughts of what's going on with the tight end market, and maybe who you see as the next potential person to jump off the board?
So I'll go ahead in here and talk about kind of why we're seeing this trend of a lot of tight ends going off the board. We good?
Yeah. Sorry, my headphones unplugged for a minute.
No, you're good. So I think the trend that we're seeing here is the tight end's really been a position that's very hard to get in the draft. I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of top tier tight ends in this upcoming draft. You've got the tight end from Florida. I can't remember his name right now. He's gonna be one of probably the better tight ends in the draft, and I think that's the big key here. Is there's not a lot of great tight ends. There's a lot of solid dudes, but not really a lot of those number one options. When we've seen the two number one options, they're both with the Patriots right now, and I think it's very hard to find that elite tight end like a Travis Kelce, a Rob Gronkowski, a Jonnu Smith, a Hunter Henry. It's very hard to find those guys, and it's very hard to draft those guys. So what we're kind of starting to see is now, since the top dudes are off the board, everyone's just kind of signing those guys who, they're not gonna be big for you, but they're decent. Like a Jacob Hollister, he's a pretty good tight end. Darren Fells, 35, don't know if he might retire. 35 for a tight end's pretty old. But I think we're just starting to see that trend here where it's kind of just now you're kind of just picking up those tight ends who aren't going to put out a lot of production for you, but they can maybe catch a ball or two here and there, give you some good blocking. But I mean, other than that, there's not really going to be a guy left out there in the tight end free agency market who's going to make a big deal for you on the team.
Yeah, for me, just looking at the tight end positions, you see a lot of teams are starting to go with having two tight ends on the same squad, two tight ends who are serviceable And it kind of works when you have like a blocking tight end, and then you have a tight end that's more used to running routes. That tight end doesn't necessarily have to block all the time. So you look at Kyle Rudolph going to the Giants, and we know that the Giants have Evan Ingram. That frees up Evan Ingram from having to do a lot of the grunt work. We know Evan Ingram struggles with injuries here and there. So to have him freed up to run a lot of routes is like pretty cool. I know with us, we've had a few tight ends on the Raiders with not only Waller, but we had Witten last year. And, it freed up Waller to not have to worry about the grunt work of blocking and taking, that toll of the injury risk and everything like that. So, yeah, Patriots, 2 tight ends, 2 pretty good tight ends. It's you're gonna see more teams go with more of a 2 tight end set, and to help with some of that load.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like there's a lot of teams that are going into that 2 tight end set. Raiders got Waller. They had Witten and Derek Carrier last year. They re-signed Carrier as well to a 1-year deal. But some teams aren't really built for that. Giants are potentially looking to add to the receiving core. They just added John Ross, and they are meeting today with Kenny Golladay, who name's been kind of quiet the last couple of days. He met with the Bears yesterday. He's meeting with the Giants today. If he goes to the Giants, that adds another receiving threat. I just don't know that the Giants are necessarily built for that, so it could potentially be a trade situation. I could definitely see them getting rid of Evan Ingram, being that he has been injury prone and hasn't really necessarily made a huge splash like they wanted him to because of those injuries. Or like you said, Roshocker, it could give him that opportunity to make sure he stays healthy, and split those downs with him. Kyle Rudolph is a solid tight end, but does he become that number 1 guy, or does he take that number 2 spot? What is his role gonna be if they do go with a 2 tight end system? It should definitely be interesting to see what they decide to do. The other ones, Seattle makes a move with Gerald Everett. Jared Cook to the Chargers is kind of interesting because you think about Cook and what he's done lately in the last couple of years. He did a lot with the Raiders. He did a lot with the Saints. With him getting older now, he's 34 years old as a tight end. He's probably one of the older tight ends out there right now. Does he make that same splash with the Chargers, or does he bust? We know Chargers had previous older tight ends and Antonio Gates, but now they don't really have that youth over there at tight end. So how does that impact the Chargers situation at tight end?
Well, it gets them someone that at least for now they can replace Hunter Henry with. But like you said, with Cook kind of being older, how much production are you gonna be able to get from him? Especially with you having a young quarterback coming into his 2nd year with Justin Herbert. You really think that they would try to make a push to keep Hunter Henry there? So I'm pretty shocked that they went from him and bringing in a Cook. But Cook still can be productive. He had a decent year with the Saints, and at least possibly they might look into the draft and draft the tight end. But yeah, with you having a 2nd year quarterback, you're getting a new coach in there. You definitely want to keep a lot of the pieces kind of around Herbert so that you don't go through what a lot of people have mentioned, a sophomore slump.
Honestly, I think it's gonna be one of those like 1-year rental type deals is really what I think the Chargers are gonna do here. And then maybe middle of the season, maybe if Kyle Rudolph's up for trade, or one of these tight ends are up for trade, maybe try to trade for them somehow. I'm not really worried about it because I feel like Herbert's kind of proved now who he is, and so maybe last year it was big for him to have that tight end. I think it's really big for rookie quarterback to have that safety valve. Like, if they had like a Zach Ertz, Jared Cook, to have that safety valve. It's really big for a rookie quarterback to have that in their first year. Just kind of give them that safety, valve to have when they're getting, going through the motions, learning how to, learn an offense. I feel like in his second year, Justin Herbert's not going to need that as much. So I think they'll do just fine with an older tight end like Jared Cook, who can still, catch the balls, can still kind of be that safety valve. I think Herbert proved this past season that he can be that guy. And so now, they've got a pretty good receiving core over there with Keenan Allen, and those boys. So I think they'll be just fine. I think it should be a 1-year rental, and then they can kind of figure out where they want to move to after this season.
Yeah, and I mean the biggest question mark in with the Chargers is whether or not they can stay healthy. We know Keenan Allen continues to have injury problems. Austin Eckler, he had some injury problems last year. The defense, that defense constantly had injury problems. So it gets you to think what's going to happen if they can actually stay completely healthy on that field. They could very well be a very good football team this coming year. The next thing kind of want to dive into something that you had mentioned earlier, Rowdy, was the Bengals. The Bengals are making some splashes at defense, bolstering up a little bit as far as what they got. They did lose a couple key items, but I feel like maybe they are making up for some of it as well. They added New Orleans Trey Hendrickson. They lost Carl Lawson, but it was kind of a swap. It was kind of a swap there. They're pretty similar there. They lost William Jackson to Washington, but got Mike Holton and also Chidobe. So they got kind of a two for one there. Lost a tight end fullback, not really a huge deal there. AJ Green hadn't been, very active for them, and he's been injury prone anyway, so that wasn't a loss either for them. John Ross was a huge loss. They re-signed, speedster Tony Brown. So they're making some moves. They're starting to make some splashes. I guess go ahead and kick off and tell me what your thoughts are in there with the Bengals for this year.
So I think the Bengals, I think they still need to make up for, how they haven't really addressed the offensive line situation. I get they're trying to kind of, stock up that defense, bulk it up, which is good. But you also need to, once again, I keep on saying this, they need to worry about protecting their future quarterback, Joe Burrow, which they have not addressed yet, which I think is a bad move on them. I think they should have focused more on that first and then kind of worried about the defense second. Your let's be honest, Joe Burrow is going to win you games. You need to protect your future because you that's a number 1 draft pick. You got to protect that dude. Joe Burrow can lead your team to a Super Bowl, but if you don't protect him, he's not going to be able to do that. Yeah, your defense can do whatever it wants to do, but if your quarterback has no time on the offense to be able to throw the ball and he's worried about going through another terrible injury like he went through his rookie year, how are you going to win games like that? You have to address that situation with your quarterback. It's great that you're picking up defensive players, and I get that. They needed some defensive players. Trey Hendrickson, I love that signing. That's a great signing by them. But at some point, you need to help your quarterback out, or else you're going to end up like the Seattle Seahawks, where, with their quarterback wanting to be traded because they won't address the offensive line situation for so long, and the quarterback's just sick and tired of getting beat up every season.
Yeah. And he's coming off of a huge injury too. He's coming off that huge leg injury, so he definitely needs to be protected even more.
Yeah, I agree with Rowdy. Especially a young rookie quarterback, you definitely need to protect them because you don't want this quarterback to all of a sudden have the demons in his head to where he's always have to, watch behind him. We've seen what happened to a lot of different quarterbacks. Andrew Luck, Derek Carr has never been the same since he took his big injury at a young age. So the O-line is something you really want to shore. When you have a golden quarterback who played really good last year, even though the team didn't do so well, you really want to, protect him. You want to get a lot of protection for him. You want to try to spend that money in protecting him. I do see getting a good defense, especially in that division, can help you compete for a division crown. But yeah, if Joe Burrow is going to be your golden child, you got to protect him at all costs. John Ross, they probably were really disappointed with John Ross, and I could see why they let him go. He didn't really do a whole lot last year. He's been really injury prone. And they got some good production from Higgins and Boyd last year. So that I could see why they just went ahead and let him go. But yeah, if they're not going to shore up that O-line now, you can get rookies in there, but that's not going to help Joe Burrow feel comfortable back in the backfield.
Right. Yeah, they definitely need to make sure they protect Burrow. There's a lot of youth on that team, which can be a bad thing as well, because you don't have the veteran to really, mold anybody. But let's also keep in mind with John Ross last year. So John Ross, he wanted out initially, but wasn't he also the one that they asked to go to cornerback, and that's when he got hurt? I'm pretty sure they asked him to go to cornerback last year.
Wait, they asked him to do what?
Because they were hurt at corner. They were hurt at corner, and I'm pretty sure I'm about 90% sure they asked him to go to cornerback, and he said, "All right, I'll be a team player. I'll go to corner," and that's when he got injured, was playing corner.
No way.
In practice.
I didn't even know about that.
And that doesn't show how bad a team is asking a wide receiver to switch to cornerback. I mean, that just shows how they don't have it together over there. I feel so bad for Joe Burrow, and I think everybody felt that way when he was going to get drafted. It was kind of like what's funny is the Bengals are slowly starting to take. Now, don't get me wrong. This is kind of maybe too bold to say, but they're kind of starting to turn into what the Cleveland Browns used to be, where it's like you're getting, like, if you get drafted there, people are like, yeah, your career is just, listen, man, you aren't doing much there. I mean, and it's sad that Ohio just has this reputation for having terrible sports teams. Like, they're never good, like, especially in the NFL. The Browns, were so bad for so many years, and now they're finally good because they finally got it together. And now look at the Bengals. They get a savior in Joe Burrow, and what do? Don't protect him, and boom, gets hit with a nasty injury. The Bengals, mark my words, the Bengals are turning into what the Cleveland Browns used to be. If you go there, your career is almost good as dead. That's you know what?
There you have it, guys. Rowdtime is calling it. He's putting it out there. He is saying the Bengals are now the new Browns.
Sue, I love you, but the Browns used to be some trash. You can't disagree with me on that.
Exactly. I mean, the Browns were bad for the longest time. I mean, how many times did they go 0-16? I mean, how many QBs did the Browns go through? I mean, it's so bad that the fans would make fun of it by wearing a jersey and just putting a list of names on the jerseys of how many QBs they went through. I mean, you can't argue with it, Chuflaka.
They will have 0-16 parades out there. That's just
exactly. Exactly. They will have 0-16 parades.
The bags over their head going through the stadium like the paper brown. Bro, that's how you know it's bad. When you don't even want to show your face on national TV and you would rather have a bag than to show people that you're a fan of that team. They're a next level, just absolute dumpster fire of a team.
But we can very well see that same situation evolving in Cincinnati, because like you said, I mean, they are projecting to be that team, to be the worst in that division. Ravens are consistently playoff team, or at least a winning record. You have the Steelers, same situation. I mean, although they were undefeated for a while and then just tanked after that. I don't know what happened there. But you have the Steelers, and then you have the Browns. Chuflaka, this is for you. I mean, the Browns are actually starting to win some games. They made some moves last year and made some splashes where they very well could have upset some teams and made some bigger changes if they did anything different. I mean, They had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of issues on their teams, just like every team in the NFL did. Last year, for some reason, the NFL was just injury prone, and it might have been the time off that people had to take, and with COVID, a lot of that probably played a factor into that. But they did shock people. Baker, he was up and down as usual, but he still won games somehow. He didn't beat the Raiders, but we'll throw that out there. He didn't beat the Raiders, but I mean, those teams always give each other trouble. I mean, for some reason, you can always count on the Browns to possibly splitting the division with any one of those teams other than Cincinnati. Cincinnati had a bad year because of the injuries, but you can always count on the Browns to giving the other teams in that division at least one game, take a loss out of one of those games. See, them beat the Steelers at least once and beat the Ravens at least once. It just happens. For some reason, that's a division thing. I mean, look at what happened with the Raiders. They were the only ones to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They split games with the Chargers. It's just a division thing. It just continues to happen. No matter how good a team is, that division rivalry takes over anything.
And let's stick with the Browns. How do you feel about the John Johnson signing?
So yeah, I was actually just about to bring that up. Great point. Great minds think alike, Roshocker. I kind of wanted to talk about the Browns. So they picked up John Johnson, and obviously they re-signed Rashard Higgins, which a lot of people were like, well, why would they do that? Rashard Higgins is actually a big part of that team and kind of the success that they had last year. And I think a lot of people a lot of casual NFL fans don't realize that unless you actually really watch a team like that. But Rashard Higgins is a big part of that team. He's a good receiver for him. But I like that John Johnson signing that safety. That kind of helps them with that kind of hold the fill at safety for him. But I like how the Browns are looking. Honestly, I feel like they're going to kind of have the same success they kind of had last year. I'm excited to see what Cleveland can do. Baker Mayfield, I'm hoping that maybe we've seen he had some success this year. He had his up and downs like he's been having, but this was the first year that he kind of was looking as good as he has since his rookie year. So I really like the way that Baker played. I think they kind of pick up where they left off this past year. They had that terrible, heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs, with some questionable calls, obviously. But I definitely see that the Cleveland Browns have maybe even more success than they had this past year, and who knows, maybe go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Cleveland Browns, they looked really good last year. The only problem that I have with the Browns at certain points is, I know you got Baker, but sometimes it feels like they have the need to want to throw it 50 times. And I'm all like, you got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt, pound the rock some, and the games will be close, and they still want to just chuck the ball. I felt like they could have got a couple more wins if Nick Chubb would have possibly got, an extra 5-10 carries, or if they would have, Kareem Hunt just, tossed it to him a little bit more, even run it with him. So, yeah, I do love the John Johnson signing. Their defense is, young. They're going to be really, really good. Offensively, I feel like if they let OBJ go, that's just going to improve Baker Mayfield and, him not have to worry about a diva receiver on the other side. Jarvis Landry is serviceable. I really like Higgins. They got Austin Hooper over there. So I feel like they're really on the right track to taking that division.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting to look like there could be a situation where it could be anybody. I mean, you flip the coin and it could be anybody's division at that point. I mean, you got the Ravens, consistently, but the Ravens are, being a little bit too predictable. They got figured out a little bit more with the options and the running, with the QB situation. So I mean that kind of begs question of what happens there. Big Ben's getting old. He's not the same. Losing Juju. So what does that mean for Clay Claypool. Does Claypool become the new Juju and not really get as many receptions this coming year? Because we know the Steelers receivers are kind of known for that type of situation where they have a dual wide receiver threat. One gets double teamed, the other one gets the receptions. So does that happen to Claypool when Juju leaves? So it's definitely interesting. I mean, the Browns, their defense has always been solid. So, them continuing to add more great players is crazy. They continue to make those big moves. They maybe need to make another a change at wide receiver. So like you said, they don't have that diva at wide receiver, but it begs you to think, is it the coordinators fault, the way the season went because of the play calls, just the bad play calls? They have great running backs. They had great running backs, and they didn't really, like you said, they didn't pound the rock. They got Nick Chubb, they got Kareem Hunt. They got the running, to the keys to be able to be a good football team and put themselves in less harmful situations where they have to get out of a 3rd and 30 or 3rd and 20, when you're having to, when you're having to throw the ball 30 plus times a game. That's when it gets harder. When you're putting yourself in better situations to where it's 3rd and short, yeah, you're opening yourself to a better situation. Get more check down. You got some guys that are dual threats. They're not putting themselves in those good situations to win football games. So it just begs you to think if it's the coordinator or who's really causing those issues behind those bad play calls. So, receivers. Let's kind of jump into the situation right now with wide receivers, because wide receiving has been kind of light. I mean, I guess that's a wrong choice of words, because it hasn't been light, but teams have been going after the guys that are necessarily more of like the second string or the second receiver versus that number one wide receiver. We still got number one guys on the board, like like Kenny Golladay and Juju, which we know they've talked to teams, but they haven't been signed. So what's going on? Why do we think teams are not going after these big names, and they're going after a lot of these smaller, not necessarily number one receiver guys?
I think I kind of get this, and I'll let you know why. So if we take a look at this wide receiver class coming up, this is one of the best wide receiver classes that we've had in a while. You've got Devontae Smith from Alabama, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Jamar Chase. I mean, you've got a lot of receivers in this upcoming class that can be that number one guy for you. So I think that's why we're kind of seeing Golladay and these kind of like guys that are considered number ones not really being signed yet, because there's a lot of good receivers who have a lot of speed, these big targets that you can get in the draft, and we've kind of seen this to where there's really good receivers that can drop to the 2nd and 3rd round. So you're kind of seeing a lot of these better teams that have those 2nd or 3rd round picks that are going to be able to get these guys, not sign a Kenny Golladay or Juju Smith-Schuster, because they kind of have their eyes hoping that they can get one of these number one or number two guys in the draft. And I think that's a big key of it. And I think that's also a thing we see a lot of times with running backs, and why you kind of don't see these running backs get these large deals anymore, is because we've seen in the past how you can get a dude in the draft, a running back, good running back like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was a 2nd round pick. I think a lot of people forget. You can get these you can get a lot of replacements in the draft where you don't have to spend this big money in free agency to sign these dudes. Whether that way you can get them in the draft and get them for cheaper for a 3-4 year deal. So I think that's definitely what we're seeing here, is just that trend of you can pick up these really good guys to replace these 2nd string guys in the draft. I think that's a big key.
Yeah, agreed. And I just really think that for most teams, you're not trying to spend a lot of money at receiver. That's like not the position that you want to put most of your money in. You're going to see teams that are going to show interest in like a Golladay or a Juju, but those are the teams that might have like a young quarterback who hasn't signed, their big quarterback deal. Yeah, they're probably still in their rookie deals because they can spend the money on that receiver. But if you look at a lot of the playoff teams. A lot of the playoff teams, they just want to just add pieces to possibly get them to the top, not spend money at the receiver position. And yeah, with a lot of good receivers coming in the draft, that's something where, you know, a lot of the mid-level teams that are like kind of pushing to get into the playoffs, they'll possibly will look into, you know, filling that role in the draft instead of spending so much money at one wide receiver spot when you have a lot of holes to fill.
Do we think maybe even nobody, everybody's kind of like hesitant on the diva situation? I mean, we know that Juju had a lot of stuff yet last year. I mean, he was the TikTok dancer guy. I mean, he was known for this stuff, you know. Also, he was known to jinx the team by doing that stuff. I mean, let's not forget when he danced on the logo and got lit up. You know, it just begs you to think that, okay, well, if a team decides to take a risk at somebody like Juju, or I mean, Kenny Golladay, I don't think is a risk, but it begs you to question, is he a number one receiver, or is he worth the money that he might be asking for? But Juju, he's that wild card guy. He got locked down last year, so if he's asking for a lot of money, is a team willing to pay that? You have the Jets possibly looking ahead at him, which, I mean, that could be a reuniting with him and Sam Darnold, which, I mean, if that does happen, him going to the Jets, Sam Darnold could remain the starter with the Jets. I mean, it just kind of crazy the way, you know, some of these things could play out. And, you know, if that does happen, you know, does Justin Fields not land with the Jets? Does, you know, I know there's been kind of speculation that he might land with the Jets, or he might land with the Falcons. It's just interesting to see what will happen and what will play out and what one move could do to even the draft coming up.
That's true. And, you know, again, like you said, look at these receivers that are available or that were available. How many of them are true number ones, or are you willing to pay number one salary for? I mean, Juju hasn't put up the numbers that he did. And we talked about this before when he was with Antonio Brown. Are you willing to pay him 12 to 15 million a year as the number one receiver? Will he give you that production to step in that role? Golladay, I'll give you, is someone that I would want on my team that I would pay. But everybody else, you know, I'm looking at Sammy Watkins. He's been someone that would give you a couple of good games here and there, and then that's it. You know, we still got Golden Tate out there, T.Y. Hilton. He's older now. Rashard Perriman. There's not really any number one receivers outside of Golladay that I would want to pay top dollar money for him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you don't really see too many names left on the list. Will Fuller just signed with the Dolphins, a 1-year deal. I mean, you look at this list and you don't really see anything that really stands out. T.Y. Hilton is still out there. Larry Fitzgerald, does he decide to come back another year? You know, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, Golden Tate. I mean, those are some guys that some of those guys used to be number ones, but I mean, look at Larry. I mean, the guy stepped into any position he was told to. He went from a guy that was a edge receiver to a slot receiver. So, you know, it shows you that, you know, if he doesn't, you know, decide to go back with the Cardinals, he could still be a threat somewhere else if he decides to sign with another team.
Hey, what do you think about Fitzgerald possibly reuniting with BA in Tampa?
Yeah, that would actually be a crazy move. Not a crazy in a bad way. That would actually be a crazy move in a good way, because like I just said, Fitzgerald will go anywhere on the field. He will be that slot guy. He will be that, you know, number 4 guy if you need him. And you think about all those receivers and add another veteran to that team, just to help out Mike Evans even more, Chris Godwin. Then you got Scotty Miller. Man,
That boy's fast. That boy Scotty Miller. Now he
yes.
says that
Scotty Miller.
now he swears that he's faster than Tyreek. Now I don't know about that, but
Scotty doesn't know, man. Scotty doesn't know. so I wanna direct our attention over to a post that I just looked at right now. So there's a post on Bleacher Report Gridiron, Andy Dalton and why he signed with the Bears. His response, and I quote, "They told me I was the starter." What?
I actually seen that and it made me happy. So you know what that means? Russ is staying in Seattle another year, baby. Let's go.
I mean, it just means that the Bears aren't gonna push for him. Maybe. But you're
They were
told
the
you're
only
the
team.
Starter. What does that mean for the Bears? I don't know if there's any Bears fans in the chat, but geez, you went from Trubisky and Nick Foles to Andy Dalton. I mean, let's be real. Andy Dalton, I mean, he was okay with the Bengals when AJ Green was healthy and their tight end core was healthy and when their running back core was healthy. But what happens now when he's, I mean, there's who got any over there anymore? They let go of Alshon Jeffrey, right?
Yeah.
Who do they have? I'm pretty sure they were shopping one of their other receivers too. So
Allen Robinson.
Yeah, Allen Robinson. I mean, he wants out. I think that he was getting tagged, and he said he wasn't going to sign the franchise tag. So that means he could potentially sit out for the year if they don't trade him. And I think maybe they were even shopping Anthony Miller, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but Golladay is meeting. Didn't he meet with the Bears? What was
He
it,
did.
yesterday?
He did.
So I think that's what they're kind of hoping. But if they don't get Golladay, their best hope is to try to get a wide receiver in the draft. I would see them going for a receiver in the draft. It's either Golladay or you go for a receiver in the draft. Or both, because what I could see them doing is possibly trading Allen Robinson in the draft, trading up in the draft to get a number one receiver to replace Allen Robinson. That would be a smart move for them, or possibly trade Allen Robinson, trade up, and get a quarterback to sit behind Andy Dalton for a year, and then you kind of have your guy.
I mean, unless the Bears are gonna offer Golladay like a lot of money, I don't know how much I'll love. Hey, Andy Dalton's gonna be my quarterback, y'all. Let's go. We about to give me 100 receptions. Andy Dalton's gonna give me 1,400 yards. Man, I'm super excited about that. So
I mean, if Kevin King's guarding him, I mean, he might be all right.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Golladay might be doing his due diligence. If he wants to get paid and the Bears are gonna give him a lot, then hey, maybe that's a possibility. But man, if they don't,
I don't think they have the cap to even do that.
I'm sorry.
I don't think they even have the cap to give him a lot of money though, because they just tried to restructure Khalil Mack and I think one other player to be able to free some cap, which I believe Khalil Mack, restructured his deal, and maybe one other guy. I don't remember who off the top of my head, but I think that was more so with the hopes of the Russ trade happening, than to be able to sign some big names in free agency. So the only thing I could see happening is that he decides to do it because he's gonna see the Lions twice a year. That's the only reason why I could see it happening for sure. But I mean, if he wants to win games and get paid, probably I would see the Giants more so than anything, because they just got John Ross. They have some additional receivers over there. They got the possible dual tight end threat over there. They got a good running back over there. Danny Dimes is probably a better quarterback than Andy Dalton.
Are we buying into the Danny Dimes hype over here? Is this what I'm hearing?
Not buying into it. I'm just saying, if we're comparing apples to
Bears.
Bears here. I was trying to think of a orange fruit, but I guess I could have said orange for the ginger. For oh man, but like if we're comparing, Danny Dimes to Andy Dalton there, I mean, I kind of would have to go with the side of Danny Dimes being the better choice at quarterback. Just not even just for the fact of the quarterback situation, but just for what they have around the football team right now too. Plus, they have a little bit more of a decent O-line over there. I could definitely see it, just being a better situation for him to get the ball more because they have a little bit more around. Yeah, Golden Tate is currently a free agent right now, but I don't know that he's necessarily a make or break for that team right now. I mean, they could potentially even draft another receiver to add to them. So I mean, best case scenario for Golladay, he goes to the Giants. Worst case scenario, maybe he does get paid and goes to the Bears, but and sees his old team twice a year.
And then middle scenario, he goes and plays with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Fun fact about the Bears also is I think they're possibly getting rid of Kyle Fuller. Like they can't afford him or something like that. Or it's not Kyle Fuller, I think, right? Is that him?
Yeah, Kyle Fuller. Yeah. I've been hearing that too, that they might be shopping him to free some cap.
Well, I think it's they don't have the money. I don't know if he's a free agent or not, but like I think I heard something about how they don't have the money to pay him or something like that, so they're having to get rid of him.
Let's take a look here.
I don't know if he's a free agent, but I saw something about how they don't have the money to pay him or.
So, corner Buster Skrine was. Yeah, I don't think Kyle Fuller is on this list here. Doesn't look like it.
Something about I think maybe he's wanting like an extension, and so they can't pay him, so like they're looking to trade him. And someone made the joke, wow, so we signed Andy Dalton for 1 year, $10 million, and now we can't keep our superstar cornerback. Good job, Bears.
Yeah, the Bears are almost last on the cap list.
Well, because they still have Nick Foles' contract on the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nick Foles is a big contract because remember he signed that huge contract with the Jags last season. Yeah, bro, they're not looking.
They're negative 13 mil in cap space right now. You guys can't see this. You guys can't see this.
They're not signing Golladay. Big Golladay.
So unless they do some restructuring, the ones with the most cap right now is the Jets and the Jags. Obviously, you could kind of tell by the moves that they've been making. The Colts are up there, haven't been making too many moves yet. But the Jags and Jets have been active, which they can afford. Jets can afford Juju, so we could definitely see that happening. With that scenario, I mean, they're still paying. I think they're still paying Darnold on a rookie contract, which I mean, even when his contract's up, he's not going to be one of those 140 mil, or he's not going to be making 40 mil a year. We could say that right now. He'll be lucky, I think, if he makes 15 mil a year. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. All right, so who do we got next? Okay, we always got to talk about this. The Raiders making some moves. The Raiders have been active. So, between beefing up the defense, mainly on the front line, the pass rush, they haven't done too much on the secondary side, which they do need help on, but let's talk about the situation too. Like, I mean, between beefing up the defense and then also Rodney Hudson, he wanted to be released. Instead, they got a 3rd round pick for him. Gabe Jackson, they've been shopping him since last year. Instead of releasing him and getting him into free agency, they traded him and got a 5th round pick out of him. So they're adding more picks and adding more possibilities for the draft for themselves. Yes, they don't currently have an O-line. They re-signed Richie Incognito. They re-signed Denzel Good. They still have Colton Miller, who hasn't really proven himself yet at left tackle, and I think they also moved him around to right tackle here and there as well. So they do need some help still at O line, which my thoughts, they could very well easily draft somebody in that first round, or get multiple picks in that first round, or maybe even get somebody in the second, or second round, or later in the draft. They're known for drafting people later into the draft and drafting these gold mines in like the fourth round, or the late third round. They don't do so hot. We know they don't do so hot in the first and second round. I don't know why they don't do well in the first and second round, but they do crazy good in like the third, fourth, and fifth round. Look at Max Crosby, wasn't he a fourth rounder? So I mean, he did better than Cleveland Farrell, our first round pick. So it's kind of crazy the way that happens, and they're getting the picks to add to be able to add into the draft, which is going to help them out, and they could potentially trade those drafts and add more picks. They're known to do those type of things in the draft. They definitely need help in the secondary. I don't know if they decide to go after somebody in the free agency or draft somebody, but yeah, let me know what do you think, Roshocker? What's your thoughts so far, and how you feeling about some of these moves?
Well, the Kenyon Drake thing surprised me, and not for the reason of us getting another running back, but just for him. I thought he had a pretty decent year last year with the Cardinals, and I thought that wherever he went, he's going to be looking to get a lot of snaps, a lot of carries. And, with us already having Josh Jacobs, I would think that he wouldn't want to just come in to like a third down role. But getting Kenyon Drake, I really like the move, because even though Josh Jacobs, he's been our 1,000-yard rusher, he does get banged up throughout the year. He's a tough running back. He plays through the injuries, but he does get banged up. So it's pretty cool to bring in someone like that to help release the load. I like John Brown coming in, but yeah, defensively, hopefully we got something else up our sleeves. I do want us to bring in some DBs. We talked about this. We want to see, a couple of veteran linebackers come through, not just old linebackers, but someone that can come in and get our young guys, straight. Someone that can just come in and lead the defensive unit. And, we got some talent on the defensive side, but at times we just gave up the deep ball way too many times. So yeah, we really need help with our DBs. And our O-line is just a huge question mark. It's a huge question mark. So I don't know if we're going to just shore that up in the draft, and even getting rookies in there, it still takes a while to develop them and, get a good line for a quarterback who is, can get a little shaky behind the line. So that's what's probably nervous for me between our secondary and our O-line.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely a big question mark, and with the O-line situation, I'm not hugely worried about it, because I like that we have Tom Cable as our O-line coach, and he is a freaking O-line whisperer. He works magic. I mean, look at what happened last year with how many times they had to switch up their O-line and get guys that were third stringers or second stringers, and just kind of moved them around, and still was able to protect Carr for the most part. I mean, he was sacked over 20 times, but I mean, it's still not bad for having third string linemen on him. If they draft an O-lineman in the first round, then we probably won't draft a linebacker or a steel linebacker. Like, I feel like, if they don't go O-line, they might go linebacker in that first round. Rowdy, you have anything to add?
Draft,
So I'm not a Raiders expert by any means, but I do like that move with King and Drake. So maybe they'll go with like maybe more of a two-back system possibly. I don't watch that much Raiders football, but I think having that other good running back is gonna help maybe take the pressure off Derek Carr throwing the ball as much. So that way, they can kind of establish the run early on, and then Derek Carr can, get his throws in, and kind of bomb it over top the Henry Ruggs. Kind of help out him on the offensive side, since maybe, they don't have the greatest O-line. right now, depending on how they address that. So with Kenyon Drake, I like that move. Kenyon Drake is a really good running back. I feel like he was kind of underrated when he was in Miami. Then he went to the Cardinals. Everyone was like, "Wow, this dude's actually really good." So I love that pickup. I think that was kind of a steal for the Raiders. To be honest, I'm surprised nobody else tried to get him. So I'm definitely gonna like to see how that helps Derek Carr out as far as giving him another weapon right there, and kind of taking the pressure off Josh Jacobs as much. So I love the move by the Raiders. I like what they're doing. I think they have a solid team. I mean, now granted their division is very tough when you have to play the Chiefs. Um, but honestly, I really like how they're looking right now. Depending on what they do in the draft, I could see them being possibly a playoff team next year, depending on how they do.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely need to continue making these moves, especially at DB. They added a wide receiver. They lost a wide receiver and added a wide receiver, but also added speed, because we all know that they need people that can keep up with with the Chiefs. And John Brown, he's not just known for fly routes and streaks and all that, so that definitely helps to be able to get a veteran receiver in there that knows how to run routes, and that could possibly help out another speedy guy like Ruggs start to develop a little bit more. So let's talk about another big move here. Patrick Peterson was another big move. Corners have been flying off the board here, so it's definitely pretty interesting to see with him. He signed with the Vikings, so obviously we've seen the Shaquille Griffin thing happen. We've seen Chidobe, William Jackson, but Patrick Peterson, he only signed a 1 year $10 million deal. So that's definitely interesting. That he, I mean, we see this a lot lately, and it's either a matter of getting paid or those prove it deals. A lot more players are starting to sign these prove it deals to kind of show their worth and continue on with these teams. So tell me a little bit about kind of what your thoughts are. I know Rowdy, you kind of mentioned a lot more on the whole prove it deals. Jason, I think it was Jason Verrett, he signed another prove it deal with the Niners. So it's definitely interesting to see more of these players starting to accept prove it deals, especially somebody at Patrick Peterson's caliber, that he would take that kind of a deal.
I think with the Patrick Peterson deal, I think it was because he had an off year. He really, we've kind of seen this with Patrick Peterson the past year or two. He hasn't really played at that level that he's used to. And I guess we're starting to see that with more of these kind of like older cornerbacks, where they're as they're getting up there in age, they're not really, putting out the production that they used to. Like obviously Richard Sherman isn't Richard Sherman that he used to be back when he was on Seattle, but these guys can still produce. And so what you're starting to see is with these guys is they kind of feel like they still have something to prove that they still deserve those 2-3 year deals. And so I think a lot of these teams aren't willing to pay them that much. I don't think there was a team out there really willing to pay Patrick Peterson 2-3 years for like 20 million or 18 million. I don't think there was a team out there willing to pay him that. So he had to take a 1 year deal because his production wasn't that great this past year. A lot of these teams will look at it and be like, oh, wow, this Patrick Peterson, he used to be good, but, he hasn't had a great year in 2 or 3 years. They're going to look at what you did last year they're not going to look at the legacy or what this dude has done in the past, 2 or 3 years ago. They're going to look at what you did last year. And we've seen this happen with older cornerbacks as they get up there in age. Darrelle Revis, when he was getting up there in age, he was taking a bunch of 1 year deals with different teams, kind of moving around, wasn't getting those big contracts anymore because he wasn't what he used to be. And so I think that's what you're kind of seeing here with these cornerbacks is just taking those 1 year deals, trying to prove that they still deserve that big money.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rowdy. And it really did hurt Patrick Peterson. 2 years ago, he had the suspension for taking supplements, and yeah, like you said, he has not been the same from that. And you just kind of wonder, was that what was keeping him going as he's getting older? And with a cornerback, a lot of times you'll see older cornerbacks kind of go into a role of playing more nickel, possibly going into safety. You know, the league gets faster, faster, and faster each year. And you can rely on Patrick Peterson, who was an athletic freak his whole career with the Cardinals, to be that same player. So, yeah, I think, you know, you're going to see more people. You know, we still got a lot of corners that are available, but they're older, like a Richard Sherman. You're going to see a lot of prove-it deals. You're going to see a lot of one-year deals. Teams are not going to want to invest in these type of players that are 30 plus. And yeah, Patrick Peterson, you know, it's good that he's getting 10 mil. I don't know how much incentives are tied into it, but for a Viking squad who really relies on their defense, yeah, I don't really see too much out of him going over there. And this is probably going to be one of his last few contracts that he's going to get in his career.
Yeah, a couple of the names that stand out for me, obviously, right now, and it's kind of crazy that the name, it's been kind of quiet. The DB market has kind of been, like you said, right now the DB market is very old. Average age is probably around 32 right now, or 30. So you're not going to see too many people jumping, or too many teams jumping at these names. I mean, Desmond Trufant definitely would have jumped on that name, you know, 5 years ago, you know, but yeah, you know, we're talking about he's almost 32. Casey Hayward, Malcolm Butler. I mean, we think about his career, and he's known for that one play in the Super Bowl. Sorry, Rowdy. I'm sorry, Rowdy. I'm sorry, Rowdy. But I mean, let's be real though. Like, I mean, look at what he didn't do nothing with Tennessee. AJ Boye, you know, he's a solid corner, but also getting up there in age, and he's harder to keep up with the speed, and especially in that division that he was in, Denver. You know, it was tough for them to keep up with that speed. But Richard Sherman, I mean, we haven't really been hearing his name around lately. I mean, yeah, he's older, he makes plays, but you could very well see a team, you know, push him over to safety and use him in that spot to where he doesn't have to man up and press anybody and keep up with these speedy receivers. So it's interesting to see how quiet his name has been in the market lately. But also, Tennessee released Adoree Jackson. That's a huge name on the board. What is going on with that? We haven't really heard too much going on, you know, with the cornerback market right now, other than some of these, you know, these smaller names, or, you know, 1 year deals. I mean, look at all these 1 year deals. The biggest deals that you got are, you know, Shaquille Griffin and William Jackson at 3 years and 4 years over here with Mike Hilton. A lot of 1 and 2 year deals here. So you don't really see too many teams wanting to go after some of these older corners. And it could be very well that they're going to wait to see what happens after the draft. You know, the draft could determine whether or not these other players get signed or not. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, because I mean, we already know Raiders need, you know, corners. Seahawks just lost one of their corners, so I mean, you got to make up for that. Yeah, you're losing somebody, you got to make up for it. Cowboys lost Chidobe Awuzie, Pittsburgh losing another one. I mean, Pittsburgh has a lot of older guys over there, so you know what's going to happen with some of these teams that are still kind of, you know, needing a corner. Do we not see any type of movement on the cornerback market until after the draft?
I definitely think so. And I think that's kind of like with the whole tight end thing, how you see a lot of older tight ends still up on the board. I think it's just you're kind of waiting for the draft. And we see this in a lot of sports, especially even the NBA, where a lot of teams wait for after the draft and then kind of assess what you still need to fill, or, you know, hey, we didn't get this position that we thought we were going to be able to get in the draft, so now we're going to sign this guy that we waited on. I mean, we see this happen all the time. So I definitely think a lot of these older dudes, you see them don't really get picked up. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Clowney didn't get picked up last year until after the draft, right? Or Clowney didn't get signed for a while.
Yeah, but I think that was partially his choice because he wanted the bank. He wanted to get paid. And so teams were interested, but he wanted a way too much. I want to say he wanted like 14 mil or something like that a year, or something crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, I think definitely these dudes aren't probably going to get draft. A lot of these dudes aren't going to get signed. Some of them might not even get signed even after the draft, to be honest with you, just because of the age. I think a lot of them retire. I think Josh Norman, he's like 34, 35, or close to it. He's up there in age. So Josh Norman's probably on his last leg. He's maybe got 1 year left in him, if even that. That's if teams even want to sign some of these guys, you know. I think a lot of teams are starting to kind of see that they need to kind of go younger. A lot of these dudes are, you know, it's the NFL has changed a lot, and I think a lot of people forget that the game has changed so much over the past couple years. You're starting to see these dudes with freak speed, like you're seeing and starting to see more guys kind of like a Tyreek Hill come in the draft, like a Henry Ruggs and John Ross. A guy like Richard Sherman can't keep up with guys like that. And we see what happened in the Super Bowl when they tried to put Richard Sherman on a McCole Hardman or Sammy Watkins or a Tyreek Hill. He got absolutely roasted because they try to play the zone defense and the zone just get burned. So I think that's what we're kind of starting to see here is teams are kind of, starting to be iffy on these older guys who aren't as fast and aren't as athletic anymore. How do they kind of fit my team? I can't really use them because I'm scared they're either going to get, even if you put a Richard Sherman at safety, he can still get burnt by a Tyreek Hill no matter how far you put him back because of how fast guys are like that nowadays in the NFL. And I think sports overall are just changing where you're starting to see these guys become so much more athletic that a lot of dudes who were good 4 or 5 years ago who were top elite guys can't really play the same game anymore because of how the games are starting to change and they're starting to evolve because of how much more athletic so many people are in these different sports.
Yeah. And speaking of speed, if the Chiefs pick up Anthony Schwartz, I'm going to lose it and I'm going to watch a different sport because did you guys see this guy just ran a 4.26 today?
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is so the guy the wide receiver prospect Anthony Schwartz ran a 4.26. Obviously it's not not something that it's not combine yet or anything like that, but geez, if this guy is running a 4.26, he's got speed. So we know that the Chiefs like the speed, so I'm really hoping that they don't go after him regardless of what round he's projected. I don't want to see another speedster on our division. But yeah, we'll go ahead and shift it over to Roshocker and just kind of tell me your thoughts on kind of what's going on with the cornerback market as well, just kind of how you're feeling about it all. I mean, like I said, we're pointing out a lot of the stuff about the the age of these guys and the speed that they're having to keep up with. I mean, we're guys running 4.26s and 4.2s and it's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is crazy, and I want to say that's why we see a lot of these 30 plus cornerbacks still on the market. You don't have teams that are like trying to just dive at them, and a lot of it too is just personality wise. Like, you bring in a Richard Sherman and that there's a lot that comes with a Richard Sherman type of cornerback, especially him being 33. He doesn't mesh well in all with all teams, and he could be a good leader, but he can also be someone that there's a lot of young people that can't deal with that type of leadership. So you really have to watch what type of person that you bring in there. But look at these cornerbacks. I could see teams wanting to wait until after they draft. And let's just say you got a team that drafted 2 cornerbacks in a draft, and they'd be like, oh, you know what? We'll take someone like, a DJ Hayden or a Josh Norman to try and groom these players while we get them ready, get them NFL ready, almost be like a player type coach type thing where, they'll bring in a 30-year-old DB that, he's not going to be on the field all the time. But he's really valuable in that locker room and in training a lot of your rookie corners to get to that level. So, instead of spending, 5 mil, 6 mil right now and bringing in someone, and then you might not even draft the DB, they might be waiting till the draft and then try to make a decision after that.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be interesting, and I think right now too. I mean, a lot of teams are figuring out their cap. They're figuring out how much cap they have. Some teams are making those moves to free up. Some are asking players to take a pay cut. Some are saying, yeah, we'll take the pay cut, but if they decide no, hey, we're not going to take the pay cut, they may get traded. So I mean, teams are finding different ways to be able to get back on the market, and then if they draft, that's going to decide a lot of things too. But yeah, I mean, I, I would have thought some of these bigger names would have been off the board, or at least close to being off the board. At least some discussions, but it's definitely interesting to see that you're not really hearing any talks. But I think cap definitely plays a factor, and I mean, you see some of those teams with the cap that's up there. You see the Jets and the Jags. Could we see a Dory with the Jags? They just got Shaquille Griffin. They drafted CJ last year. Could they go and get a Dory as well? That would be dangerous. Can you guys imagine that DB core over there? Like how fast those guys are, and just how quick. I mean, you might see a defensive minded Jags team again, and just going back to just pure defense.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a couple of days ago. You bring a defensive Jags team and add a Dory Jackson like that, and that division it could be up for grabs. Definitely up for grabs. I mean, the Tennessee Titans don't really scare a lot of teams. The Colts, we don't know what we're going to get out of Carson Wentz over there. So yeah, bringing a defensive team takes a lot of pressure off of a possible Taylor Lawrence that might be drafted to the Jaguars. And the offense don't really have to, worry about making mistakes. They just have to be serviceable, and the defense will hold their ground. And yeah, that could be dangerous.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Rowdy?
I think I definitely agree with Roshocker here. Now the Jags still need to address a lot here, but I can see them being a whole lot better than they were this past year. I see people talking about how they're gonna possibly draft Trevor Lawrence and stuff like this. I'm gonna come out with a very bold statement. Trevor Lawrence is gonna be a bust. I'm just saying this right now.
Ooh.
Trevor Lawrence is not an NFL-made quarterback. I hate to break it to you. I've seen the man play in real life because I live like 30 minutes from Death Valley. I've seen what that man does. He throws it up. A lot of times I've seen him throw it up and just pray. And T. Higgins would catch those prayers. Sorry, Trevor, but you ain't got a T. Higgins in Jacksonville, buddy. That's all I'm going to say. You got a DJ Chalk, but, listen, I'm just saying. He's going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to be that good. I say the Jags stick with Minshew. Minshew's proven that he can, Minshew can play. I don't know why everyone's hating on Minshew, but Minshew magic is real. A lot of people don't believe it, but it is. It's real. The man can play. I don't know why you'd want to get rid of him. I mean, you've had success with him. It's not his fault that you haven't given him any talent to play with. I'm just saying that right now, Jacksonville. I'm sorry that you're too cheap to spend any money. All right, and now you finally spending some money, and now you want to get rid of the guy. Like, what is this? Like, what type of organization are you running? I mean, if Blake Bortles can take you to the playoffs with a good defense, I'm pretty sure Minshew Magic can do double that and possibly take you to the Super Bowl if you really give him a good team. That's all I'm going to say. That's my hot take on Jacksonville. Yeah, that's your rowdy hot take of
the rowdy hot take. Oh my gosh. Minshew Magic is real. I agree. I like Minshew. I don't think he's a horrible quarterback. You give him time to throw, and give him time to develop. I feel like, he could take that team, give him a little bit more threats, maybe at receiver. I mean, look at who he's had. He's got D.D. Westbrook. He's got DJ Shark, which, I mean, is fine, but none of those guys are really a number one receiver. You have a lot of slot or number two receivers that you're not putting yourself at that talented position where, I mean, sometimes you do need those positions or those guys, those wide receivers that need to get locked down. So it'll be interesting to see if they maybe draft another receiver, or if they maybe see what else is out there. I mean, Golden Tate, not necessarily the biggest number one threat. Kenny Golladay would be interesting over there. That could definitely help out. But I mean, he doesn't have that threat there. The running back situation's been kind of up and down the last couple of years with Leonard Fournette, there and then leaving. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they've gotten calls about Minshew, so they might trade him away and get Trevor Lawrence. But like you said, is Trevor Lawrence the answer? That's the big question mark. And a rookie coach. A rookie coach, yes, he is proven in college, but that's always been a question mark when a college coach comes into the NFL. Can they do the same thing? Can they win football games with an NFL team? Complete different situation going from college to NFL, and we've seen so many coaches fail for it. Lane Kiffin, great college coach, horrible NFL coach. I mean, you've seen. I mean, you even talk about regular coach, or you even talk about coaches in the NFL, and you think about just great coordinators. Some coaches are just way better as a coordinator than they are as a head coach. It's just proven. And they just don't know how to build around that. They're way better coordinator than they are a head coach, and it shows when they become a head coach and they just tank and lose a football team. Just make a good football team look horrible. So it'll be interesting to see how even Urban Meyer does, and what he does. Continuing on with the Jags. Any additional takes on the Jags and Urban Meyer? Anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Urban Meyer does. And like you said, college coaches transfer into the NFL. You haven't really seen a lot of success. Other names that you can mention is Kelly went from Oregon to Philly. That wasn't good. Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien. Yeah, enough said with that one. So yeah, Urban Meyer coming through. I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't try to bring a college system to the NFL, because that's what a lot of these coaches do. They come in here big-headed and say, I'm gonna run my system. I know Cliff Kingsbury, he's the next one that everyone's gonna keep their eyes on. All right, you got the talent. What are you going to do? He's the one that wants to run his college, spread everybody out. We're going to throw it. We're going to have Kyler Murray, going all over the place. What are you going to do? What type of system is Urban Meyer going to bring? Is he going to try a college system that he was accustomed to running, when he was there? Or is he going to try and listen to some of his coordinators and bring more of a pro system? And whatever he does is going to translate to how good Taylor Lawrence or any other quarterback they might bring in there is going to do.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, Bill O'Brien over there trading away great players for a bag of Cheetos and a milkshake.
And a milkshake? That's an overstatement. No, he was just selling them for it. He was selling them for the last 2 Cheetos in the bag, to be honest with you.
The crumbs and
he's trading for the crumbs.
The end of the milkshake, not even a full milkshake. just a half drink milkshake and some crumbs of the Cheetos, man. It's crazy. But yeah, Harbaugh was another one. I mean, yeah, he took him to the playoffs, but bust after that. I mean, Harbaugh, just was more of a college coach, and it just shows with some of these guys that come in from college and they just kind of expect something more, and it's maybe just that the team should be automatically fit to go. And it's just not the same thing.
I think the biggest key that we've seen of this is the greatest college football coach of all time. Even Nick Saban couldn't produce his success that he had in college in the NFL. I mean, let's be real here. The greatest college football coach of all time couldn't be successful in the NFL. If he couldn't do it, I don't know who can. If the greatest college football coach of all time couldn't bring his college offense into the NFL and be successful with it, what makes you think that you even stand a chance?
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy to think about that, because they have huge success winning championship over championship over championship, but also the scouting situation is a little different. You're getting players a little differently than you would in the NFL. You got to actually spend you guys spend the money differently. Yeah, though that way you're scouting for scholarships. That's a whole different story than scouting for contracts. So it's just not translated the same. And I mean, just schemes in general are not translated the same from college to the NFL. You don't see people running the same, crazy plays, the flickers, and it just does not work. It doesn't work in the NFL. Those crazy trick plays, like, yeah, they're gonna work against a college team, and you're gonna beat a college, those college teams are gonna win, 70 to 20. You see those crazy high scores, that's not gonna translate in the NFL. Some of these games you're barely getting touchdowns. Just not the same. It's just a lot faster. And a lot of these guys will attest to it. When they come to the league, it's a lot faster going from college to NFL. Who do we think is the best availables right now? Who do we got as our top availables in free agency? Is there anybody that stands out right now that you're like, okay, kind of shocked that they're on the board, but also, who should be looked at right going into, the rest of today and tomorrow?
The guy we've been talking about all day for me is Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is someone that can definitely be an eye raiser. Where he goes can be like, okay, this team might have something. I mean, if he were to come out right now and say that he's going to agree to a contract with the Raiders, you're going to see me grinning for the next couple of weeks. I'll be really ecstatic, really happy about that. But yeah, for me, it's Kenny Golladay. I think a lot of people would be happy to add him to any franchise. Any fan will want him on his team, his or her team.
I think the big one that's still available as far as offensive lineman is a David Andrews. He is reportedly not coming back to the Patriots from what I've heard, because they simply just don't have the money for him. So I mean, he's free grass for anybody. That's a big hole to fill for center. I definitely David Andrews. I feel like David Andrews, Chris Carson is still on the board, and Keanu Neal. Those are three solid dudes that you can put in. Keanu Neal's a really good safety. Chris Carson's a good running back. Yes, he's had his health problems, not be able to stay fully healthy. But I think those three guys. But I think David Andrews out of all three of those is the best one. I mean, that's a big center. Get that dude, get that center filled up. I mean, center position is a big position to fill. I mean, if we're being honest here, your top three positions on your offensive line to fill is center, your tackles. The guards you can kind of get away with not being the greatest, but you got to have your tackles to cover your quarterback's blind sides the best, and you got to have that center to really hold down the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I'm gonna have to say, just kind of thinking youth. This one kind of just happened recently, and I think this one will be interesting to see where he goes. I don't know that he's necessarily top on the board or anything like that, but Philip Lindsay, he has potential to be a starter anywhere. So it'd be interesting to see who takes him. I mean, let's think about who needs a running back right now. Seattle hugely needs a running back right now. They're potentially, losing Chris Carson. Penny hasn't really done too much. I mean, they have been lacking that number one running back for a while that can kind of do it all. A mixture. They've been going a little bit heavy on the power runners. With guys like Penny and with guys like Chris Carson, they're not known for their speed. So if you could get somebody like a Philip Lindsay over there, and then we also know that New England Patriots love their running backs. They don't care if they have 5 running backs already. They'll go and grab another running back. It's just what they do. I mean, I'm pretty sure they got 10 on their roster right now. So it's very interesting to see what could happen with Philip Lindsay now that it's decided that he's not going to return with the Denver Broncos. I could definitely see him going to a team and making a difference right away.
I'm just happy that Philip Lindsay is leaving the Broncos and is out of our division. Definitely hurts the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are gonna really miss Philip Lindsay. The trash Broncos of the AFC West gonna be the bottom feeders again.
Shots fired.
Put their trust into Drew Lock, their number one quarterback, who John Elway thinks is a stud. Oh, I'm so happy that the Broncos are losing Philip Lindsay. Sorry, just have to put that out there.
That just kind of, I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Hold on. Let's talk about how their GM, or their GM is a quarterback minded guy that continues to bring in these quarterbacks that he thinks is great, but are just kind of mediocre. I mean, wasn't he the Osweiler project? You think about the quarterbacks that he's brought in since he's been there. It's interesting to think about. Like, you would think that he would be bringing in some of these top rated quarterbacks, or even drafting a guy. I mean, you would have thought that he would have drafted somebody like a Mahomes, or even like a Russell Wilson or somebody else, but he's not bringing in those guys. And it's kind of interesting. They haven't had a good quarterback since Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was at the end of his career, and I mean, you think about too, like, he didn't even have his best years over there when he was there. Yes, he brought him to a Super Bowl, but he didn't have the greatest games all the time. He didn't they didn't win the games by the passing all the time. So it's interesting to see, like, all the QBs that are going into Denver and just not producing.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say Peyton Manning was a gift to the Denver Broncos, but let's look at this. You got Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch. And then before Peyton Manning, you had Tim Tebow, Kyle Orton. So, I mean, yeah, that's a star-studded list right there. What do you think, Rowdy?
I just want to say, so some breaking news. The Browns are signing former Rams cornerback Troy Hill to a 4-year, $24 million deal. So another pickup for the Browns defense. And the Jets are picking up free agent Keelan Cole from the former Jags. A 1-year deal with the Jets for $5.5 million. All right, sorry.
So what does that mean for Juju? Oof.
Ooh, yeah. Juju's not looking hot right now.
Elway is not the GM anymore, but he still makes decisions.
Oh yeah, also I just want to say, don't you hate on my man Drew Lock like that. Hold on a minute. y'all are not going to slander my man Drew Lock like that, all right? My man's had 2 years. All right? An absolute trash happened to him, all right? Don't you hate on my man Drew Lock like that. That is my second favorite quarterback in the league. All right, I'm not a Broncos fan by any means, but don't you ever throw slander on that man's name. Paxton and Brock Osweiler were some hot garbage. But don't you dare call that man Drew Lock mediocre, okay?
I mean, his favorite receivers were on the other side of the field.
The man had half of the team was literally injured last year. Like, are we really gonna hate on the man? And then his running back got a DUI like 2 games into the season or something like that. He's dealing with a train wreck over here. I mean, the man's trying his hardest. Let's be real here, right? Drew Lock is not a bad quarterback, okay? Mark my words, Drew Lock is gonna be a Super Bowl winning quarterback by the end of his career. Or he's gonna he's gonna be close to it. He's gonna get to a Super Bowl at least. All right. Don't you hate on my man like that.
With the Patriots.
Not with the Patriots. I don't care who he's with. He's gonna make a Super Bowl somehow. I don't care who he's with, but he's gonna make a Super Bowl as a starting quarterback in this league. All right. He is not a bad quarterback by any means.
Okay, so let's think about a crazy scenario here, because we know that there's some trades talking, some trades potentially happening around the league. It's gonna happen. Deshaun Watson could potentially leave, and he said one of the teams that he would like to play on is the Denver Broncos. Now, if they swap QBs, that's a whole lot worse scenario for Drew Lock. That's a whole lot worse scenario for Drew Lock. They lost Will Fuller over there. Their O-line's okay. It's not the greatest over there. That team is a dumpster fire right now. The Houston Texans right now. So if they swapped Deshaun Watson for Drew Lock, what does that mean for his career at that point then?
I'll let you take this one away.
No. We're taking this one to Rowdy because Rowdy, this is his boy. This is Rowdy's second favorite quarterback. What does that mean for his career?
Drew Lock's still the GOAT. That's what it means.
I mean, you kind of just put that situation with anybody though. Like, Raiders swap, Jared Carr over there. I mean, you could very well say the same thing. I mean, it's interesting to think about what could happen to a quarterback's career, and we talked about this last podcast with Josh Rosen. Rosen got the freaking bad card dealt to him, man. He got Joker's Wild on him, man. He basically got screwed in the draft by going to the Cardinals. If he didn't get drafted by the Cardinals, he could have been in a better situation, going into his career, because the Cardinals went into the following year with the Kyler Murray situation, already going to happen, and then he goes to Miami, and then Tua happens over there. So he's just been dealt the bad card. Had he been drafted by a different team to start with, he could have probably had a better career.
I've always had this weird thought, and maybe I'm crazy for saying this, but is it just me, or does it feel like there are too many quarterbacks in the NFL? Like, I don't feel like there's enough teams for all the quarterbacks that we have every single year. Like, there's almost this influx of so many good quarterbacks that it's like if you don't perform in a year, you're out of a job.
Right.
Like, maybe I'm crazy for saying that, and maybe you guys don't feel the same way, but I've always kind of felt like there's almost not enough teams for as many quarterbacks to come in, because so many people grow up wanting to play quarterback. They want to be that guy that throws the game-winning touchdown. Like, am I crazy for thinking that maybe there's not enough teams for all these quarterbacks that come in the league, and maybe there are guys who could have been great quarterbacks but never got that chance?
I feel you. It's just hard because, we'll look at last year, for an example, and we'll bring up the Denver Broncos again. The Denver Broncos had 3 quarterbacks out at one time and started a wide receiver, and that was like the worst game ever for any offense. We looked at Nathan Peterman's getting a couple of starts. We look at there was a lot of quarterbacks that got starts that you never even heard of. And it was so bad that people started bringing up the name Colin Kaepernick. Is Colin Kaepernick going to get a shot somewhere? But I really just feel like it just depends on the situation. There are quarterbacks like Mitchell Trubisky. I feel like if he was drafted on a different team, that he would probably do a little bit better. I feel like the league now wants the top draft pick quarterbacks to start right away, and it's not for everyone. We see some quarterbacks do decent, being thrusted into a role, but back in the day, you would have to sit a couple of years before you got to get your chance. Aaron Rodgers sat a couple of years behind Brett Favre before he finally got to take a role, and I really think that being able to develop like that, it really helps a quarterback out, because the speed is so much faster in the NFL compared to college. If you're coming from a big college and you play at least 5 or 6 cupcake schools before, you do play some big time schools, I mean, and you have the best offensive line, you have the best receivers, you have the best running backs, and then go to a team where you don't have anything, it can really hurt a quarterback's, a development for the quarterback. And if you go to a squad where the quarterback is behind a Pro Bowler or a former Pro Bowler, but he still gets to learn, I think it puts them in a better situation to where they can take their time to develop. And I think that's the biggest problem right now. We're trying to just force these number one picks to get in there and start right away, and not everyone can handle that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you think you kind of hit it right there with the whole like sitting for a year or sitting for 2 years. Rodgers sat behind Favre for a couple years before he finally got his shot. Too many teams are needing quarterbacks to be ready day one, or wanting quarterbacks to be ready day one, and it's because they don't have that quarterback. And I think part of it is also just the NFL lifespan has kind of shortened down. I mean, we used to see players playing 15 plus years, and now we got guys that are ending their career at 5 years or 10 years. So some teams are needing to have a quarterback ready right away, and need that quarterback in the draft. And part of it, could potentially be that they don't have that current QB to be able to develop another QB. And then injuries happen. Constantly happen, and then you have to throw somebody in there. We talked about this last time. Herbert was supposed to he was projected to sit. He was projected to sit, last year, and because that fluke incident with Tyrod Taylor, he got a start and he became the starting quarterback. Yes, he performed, and was a little different for him where he actually performed, but that doesn't always happen. Some QBs get thrown into the wolves and they just slump, and it kind of throws their motivation and their morale down to where their confidence has just dropped, and they just don't they're not able to perform the way that they should have, coming into the league, and they become a bust. Look at what happened to Johnny Manziel. Baker was almost the same situation. You had a lot of these QBs come into the league, and they weren't NFL ready day one, and they were forced into that situation to be day one ready.
Yeah, I feel like so many teams are so now wanting that guy that can just win them that Super Bowl automatically. I think that we're kind of starting to see this trend where teams don't really have the patience to grow and build guys. They want a win now team as soon as they draft a guy, and maybe that's because fan bases are just every year now, every fan base is wanting their team to just instantly make this leap from a really trash team to win a Super Bowl right now. And so I think a lot of teams are just kind of like drafting a quarterback and be like, all right, you have to be able to win now, you have to be able to perform right now, or else we don't have a use for you. Whereas a couple years ago it was like, you know what, it's okay, you're gonna sit for a couple years anyways, no pressure. Even if you are first round pick, you can sit for a couple years. We're not worried about it. We're building for the future. Now you're starting to see this trend where so many guys are getting drafted and being just thrown into the starting position immediately. Like you see so many first round picks start immediately. First week one, they start and it's like they don't perform, and it's like, okay, we're done with you. And it's like, you can't do that. I mean, you got to understand there's a lot of adjusting that's going on. And I feel like teams are starting to kind of just lose track of that and kind of lose sight that not every player that you draft is going to be perform on day one. Now look at Justin Herbert. He's an exception to that rule. He's amazing. And he was just kind of already built for it. But there's a lot of dudes who you kind of have to mold them into this NFL style player. Not all of them come in and are NFL made. I always felt like a lot of people hate on Justin Herbert coming in, but I was like, he's built for the NFL. He's got the large arm. He can throw those deep balls. So he was able to adjust easier and be able to start on day one more than other quarterbacks can. Like a Josh Rosen and stuff like that, who I feel like haven't really gotten a good chance and feel like they deserve more time to develop and grow.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you kind of hit on something too, where you had the different QBs, and you have a situation where it's like you got to win now. So if they don't win now, then we bench you. and then you got that other quarterback who does well for a game, and then he does bad for a game, and you bench him, and then we go back to you. It kind of messes with that, the mind, or kind of that morale, and that confidence of the QB. The veterans, hey, they're used to it. They're used to, getting benched, or that happening to them in their career, or having to be a backup or whatever. But you look at what happened in Miami this past year, and you had Fitzmagic starting, and then he wasn't starting. Then you had Tua in. Then you had Tua had a bad game, and then Fitzmagic was starting again. And it was just kind of that back and forth. And what does that do to a guy's mind, and how they can play and perform in the future because of just that lack of confidence, or that non-trust from their coaching staff that they can be the starter. All right, what do we got? Let's see here. Do we have any other topics that we want to pinpoint, or do we want to maybe go to the chat, see if they have any questions they want to direct towards one of us? What do we want to do here before we wrap it up?
I say we take it to the chat, see if they have any questions of anybody, anything.
All right, chat. We're gonna throw it to you guys. Let's go ahead and throw some questions out there, or some. What would you like us to, discuss with you guys right now? If there's any specific things that you guys want our thoughts on, go ahead and take this moment to post it up in chat, so we can go ahead and talk about that, and then we'll be wrapping it up here shortly. Bueller. We talked about a lot, I know, but we definitely didn't cover everything. We definitely did not cover everything. There's so much going on here.
There is a lot. I know. No, Frogman is a Rams fan. Have the Rams been doing anything?
No.
Free agency?
Oh wait, they actually, have you heard the story? So Michael Brockers came out. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he came out and made a statement saying how Matthew Stafford was a huge upgrade over Jared Goff, and how he didn't like Goff at all. And then, kid you not, the next, I think it was either a couple hours later or the next day, he actually got traded to the Rams for a draft pick.
So here's two parts to that story, and that is hilarious, because that's you make a comment about your QB that you previously had said, now your new QB is an upgrade, but the biggest reasons why he got traded was because he was asked to take a pay cut, and he denied taking a pay cut, so he got traded. And where did he get traded to?
The Rams, or the Lions.
Go. He gets to go take his foot out his mouth with Goff over there with the Lions. That's so crazy, man. So we got Celtics 30 says, what do you all think the Steelers do to prepare the roster for the season?
So the Steelers haven't really made a lot of moves.
Yeah, they haven't.
I know that is it the left tackle, right tackle still a free agent? I forget how to say his name. I was gonna say it, but I'm gonna butcher it terrible. But he's a free agent. They've lost a lot of dudes. Obviously, they're not gonna bring back Juju. So you kind of need to be able to fill that. They also lost Bud Dupree, which was big for their defense. They've lost a lot of dudes, more than they've even signed anybody.
Right.
Actually, I don't even know if they really signed anybody that's gonna help the team.
Yeah, so they signed a center because they Pouncey retired, so they needed to fill that spot. Villanueva is still on the board, their left tackle, which, I mean, you obviously have to protect your QB, and we still got Big Ben over there, which can he play another full year? It's a big question, whether or not he could play a full year again. What do they do to build? I think more so they have to think about is, life after Big Ben. Who's the next go-to guy? Do they draft a QB this year, or do they hope to draft a QB next year after Big Ben leaves? I mean, it would be smart for them to draft now, have a guy sit behind Big Ben, and try to develop that guy before Big Ben retires, because this could very well be his last year, because I mean, he's pretty much at the tail end of his career there.
Hey, they have that guy. They got Dwayne Haskins. Yes. But yeah, no, Pittsburgh, they got to make some moves. They definitely need to bring in some O linemen. Receivers, I really like the receivers that they have with Deontay Johnson. They got what's his name? Everyone loves him in Mutt. I can't even think of his name right now.
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, Claypool. They got some good receivers. Connor, I've never been big on. I don't think he's a bell cow. I think he's a decent running back if you can have a separate role for him, but just to, give it to him, he's going to be your bell cow, your number one. He always gets hurt. I don't think he's made for that role. I can really see the real Steeler team that we saw was a team towards the end of the season last year. I don't think they was I don't know how they were undefeated for so long. And if they don't make moves, they're looking towards going to a full rebuild. Yeah, they brought in Haskins. Yeah, we all know how we feel about Haskins. Mason Rudolph, we thought was going to be the next guy. And yeah, he hasn't been. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I hope, because I really like Mike Tomlins, but it's almost at a point to where might they get rid of him and just completely start off fresh? What do you think, Rowdy?
I think they just go ahead and do a full rebuild. And I think most other fans thought that this upcoming year was going to be a full rebuild, especially after that last game, seeing Big Ben kind of sit there on the bench, and just kind of sit there and think about, how this was probably going to be his last season. So, I mean, I think most Steelers fans are kind of expecting that. So, I mean, it's not going to be worst case scenario if they do a full rebuild. I say you just try to trade off everyone. I mean, even including TJ, you can just go ahead and trade him off for, some good high draft picks. Why not, You might as well just go ahead and try to rebuild around your young guys. They don't really have that many young guys. I mean, they could keep TJ, so build around TJ, try to build around Chase Claypool. Just try to get rid of everybody, draft a quarterback. I think they definitely take a quarterback this year, have him sit behind Big Ben, especially with his last year, have Big Ben kind of mentor them, and try to have them ready for next, not this upcoming season, but the season after. And definitely just I would definitely say draft some offensive linemen as well. Maybe try to get a good running back, because there's going to be a lot of good running backs in this draft as well. A lot of the stacked class is definitely running back, quarterback, and receiver in this upcoming draft. We've kind of seen that a lot. So definitely I say that's where they target, and maybe try to get an offensive lineman.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do, because I mean, the one big thing that definitely helped them out last year was their defense, and they lost some people like in Bud Dupree. They're potentially losing some of their O line when Pouncey retired, so that was something that hurt. But I mean, look at this list out there. They're free agents that they still have, that haven't been signed. I mean, Villanueva is definitely up there. Juju. Sean Davis, another factor on their defense. James Conner's actually on this list as well. So do they re-sign him, or does he get picked up somewhere else? And if they lose him, we know they have other running backs on their team, but is it someone that could step in at that number one spot? Snell's the other running back over there. Can he step up and be the number one guy if Connor does get signed somewhere else and doesn't re-sign there? So it'd be interesting to see what they decide to do here in the rest of free agency, as well as getting into the draft. Frogman asked, what about them boys? What about them Cowboys? What are they gonna do? Yeah, Cowboys are an interesting one as well. I mean, they obviously, one of their biggest things in the offseason to take care of was the Dak situation, and they took care of that. But aside from that, I don't think they've made too many moves either.
Yeah, with the Cowboys, they haven't made too many moves. One thing I've always been big on with the Cowboys is they need to improve that defense big time. You can't have, Dak can be Dak and he'll get you 25 plus points per game, but when your defense is giving up 30 plus per game, you're not going to go anywhere. And that defense sold a lot of times last year. Also, I know they're possibly interesting in shopping Gallup, which I thought it was pretty cool to have a three-headed monster because Amari Cooper can't be trusted every game. And Ezekiel Elliott, he looked like he was slowing down last year. I don't know if it was just because he came into camp out of shape or what, but he looked like he's slowing down. The Cowboys, they can't really just rely on Dak. They're going to need a lot of help, and if they're not going to bring anybody else in there, I can't really see a whole lot from them.
Yeah, and I think part of it too was that their O-line was also hurt. They had one of their O-linemen retire. They're kind of in the same boat too. I mean, part of the reason why, Dak got hurt was because he was having to run for his life. You got to protect your quarterback. I mean, it just goes along with every scenario. You got to make sure that you're protecting your quarterback. Give him the keys that he needs, not just on the receiver side, on the line, because that also impacted Zeke's numbers. If O-line, we've seen it plenty of times where if someone doesn't have the O-line that they're used to, their numbers drastically change. So definitely needs something to happen there. Black Mamba, we are taking a couple questions here from the chat. So if you want to ask anything, feel free to throw in something there. We'll be more than happy to address it. But right now we are talking about the Cowboys. Gave my 2 cents. Roshocker gave his 2 cents. Rowdy, what do you think? What do you think they need to continue to be that team again?
They just need to learn how to not pretty much choke their division away when they're clearly the most talented team in that division. I mean, it's especially this upcoming year. Like, who are you really worried about? Washington, maybe. That's it. Maybe New York, if New York can actually be good for once. But New York's biggest problem has always been that offensive line. And they just lost Kevin Zettler to Baltimore, so that's a hole they need to fill. On that offensive line once again. It's like they trade. It's either they trade or draft these offensive linemen, but never want to pay to keep them, and that's always been their biggest issue. Even with Eli Manning, towards the end of his career, was just they didn't have an offensive line. Like I always say, offensive line is one of the most important positions in football. And I know I sound like I got Finley right now talking about this, but I mean, offensive line is one of the most important positions in football. It's what protects your quarterback. It's what gives him time to be able to utilize the weapons that you give him on that offensive end. I mean, that's cool. I mean, you could have Megatron, you could have Randy Moss on your team, but what's it going to matter if your quarterback doesn't have time to throw it to him and let them get open, Your quarterback's only as good as his offensive line is. We've seen that with Tom Brady. He didn't have the greatest weapons, but his offensive line gave him that time to be able to get those guys open. And I think that's the biggest key, is keeping your quarterback protected and giving him that time. I definitely see the Cowboys. The Cowboys are probably going to be I think they'll be just fine. They definitely need to do something with that defense. I know they had always talked about signing Earl Thomas, and I don't know if Earl Thomas is ever going to play again in the NFL after his things. If you're the Cowboys, why not take a shot and sign him? Give him a deal. If it doesn't work out, cut him. I mean, yeah. What are you gonna lose by signing him?
I mean, look what they did with Aldon Smith. They were able to somehow revive him. but you said they don't have anybody to worry about. Who's in their division now? Fitzmagic. Watch out!
Oh my goodness!
Watch out! Fitzmagic is coming from.
Fitzmagic and all 35 years old he is, or 38 or however old that man is. Yeah, I'm gonna be real terrified of him. The only man that scared of that's 35 plus years old at quarterback right now is Mr. Tom Brady. That's the only man I'm scared of that's 35 plus years old at quarterback. Anybody else I will never fear at 35 plus years old at quarterback.
But
That's
he's
all
got
I'm gonna
he's
say.
got Scary Terry and Curtis Samuel now. Curtis Samuel is now with the Washington football team. You got a lot of speed over there. A lot of speed over there. I don't know, man.
Whatever.
I don't know, man.
It's still Washington though. Like, how worried are you about Washington? They've been talented in the past before, but they're so disorganized over there that they end up just somehow ruining it for themselves. I mean, we've seen this happen plenty of times.
Yeah, the NFC least division is just a coin flip, man. I mean, you just never know what's gonna happen over there. We had a losing record hosting a freaking playoff game. I mean, it's crazy. So last up here, Carolina Panthers. You know, they've made some moves. They've lost some guys here. Doesn't look like they've done too much on the offensive side. More so, they've been making the defensive moves. You know, they've done a couple things on the O line. Pat Eiflin, and Cameron Irving. Not really like too crazy there. It's a tackle and a guard, but you got Morgan Fox and Hassan Reddick over there now. Other than that, I mean, Rashawn Melvin, he's older. I wouldn't say that he's a big playmaker. Denzel Perryman, I don't know that Hassan Reddick was a good move, and Morgan Fox was definitely a good move there. But they haven't been making a big splash either. They lost a big receiver in Curtis Samuel, so I mean, you're just taking away you know, deep threats for Teddy Bridgewater there.
Yeah, you know, we didn't expect a lot from Carolina last year, outside of CMC, and then CMC ended up getting hurt. And that really, you know, took them from what, maybe possibly third in that division to, you know, last. I really don't see them doing anything but battling with the Falcons in their division. They haven't made any moves. It looks like they might just have to start, you know, rebuilding themselves. Teddy Bridgewater, he's a serviceable quarterback, but if he doesn't have any weapons, then, you know, you can't expect anything from him. And yeah, it's just a lot of pressure on CMC. Can CMC be the 400, 500 touch guy that he was before he got hurt? I don't think so. I don't think you want to even put that on him. Even, you know, I know they just paid him and everything, but that's a lot of pressure on one guy. So yeah, they have a lot of holes to fill. I don't see them doing that just through free agency, and I don't see them doing that just this year. It's going to take them a couple of years to possibly get back to what they was, and that's a playoff team.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Rowdy?
I don't know. Carolina I don't know what it is with Carolina. It's like they've always been, besides the year went to the Super Bowl, they've just always kind of been a mediocre team in that division. And, you know, previous years they were kind of able to get by with it and they could win a couple games. Just because of the way that division plays out, all the division rival, like all Tampa Bay and all them were all kind of play, you know, kind of the same against each other. That's just how it always worked out. You know, the Panthers could they would still one game against the Falcons. The Falcons would still one against them. I think Carolina was still a game against the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers would get a game against them, and it would just kind of almost balance out in that division where it would be a really close race, and they could get by without signing any guys. But now with the, you know, the powerhouse that Tampa Bay is, I don't think you can do that anymore. You need to go out and you need to sign guys. And, you know, it was always kind of this thing where it was like, you know, you're not really getting Cam much, you know, and that was what they always talked about. And then they drafted Christian McCaffrey, which is he's an absolute stud over there. Yeah, speaking of the Panthers, they actually just signed David Moore from the Seattle Seahawks, who caught 13 touchdowns for us last year. So that's another weapon that Russell Wilson has lost. Heart breaks for that. David Moore is actually a good receiver, so now you have a guy to kind of replace Curtis Samuel over there. So I mean that kind of gives them a weapon, but definitely the Panthers are a decent team. I just think that offense needs work. I don't know if Teddy B is going to be that guy that can carry you to the playoffs. Teddy B is a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, and what he did in New Orleans was good, but I don't know if he's going to be able to I don't think he's going to be that guy for you. So I definitely think they need to start looking for that guy they can bring in, and while they kind of let out Teddy B's contract play out, they have a quarterback kind of sit behind him for a little bit.
Yeah, man. It's kind of tough, man. They get themselves in a position where they could potentially win games, and then they just make some crazy moves, or or something happens. You had that defense was what held them up for the longest time, and now they need to focus on the offense, and they haven't really done that as much as they should. Running back situation is not necessarily an issue. It definitely need to figure out that wide receiver core and the tight end core to give some help, but make sure. Is Teddy the answer over there? I don't think Teddy's the answer. They gotta figure out their identity on offense. All right, guys. I think that is a wrap for today. We've definitely covered a lot. We got another one tomorrow. So our schedule going forward is going to be Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays. Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thursdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Obviously, like I said, a lot of this right now is primarily football. But as we kind of get away from free agency, we'll be adding more to the mix, and likely adding it to Rowdy's channel one day, my channel one day, and Roshocker's one day, so that way we could kind of spread it around, and also just kind of see where this takes us, and see where the sports talk goes. There's so much to cover just in NFL in general, but then we also got other sports coming up, with March Madness and baseball, and just the NFL season in general, and MMA, MCS, all, esports. So we'll be keeping it up with a lot of stuff here. But we definitely I appreciate you guys hanging out. Appreciate the engagement there. Rowdy, anything you want to add here?
We the greatest.
We the greatest.
DJ Khaled. We the best.
Roshocker, anything you want to add?
Hey, anybody interested in doing March Madness? I got a bracket going. I'm gonna be possibly giving away, or we will be giving away, a gift card to the winner. If you think you can put together a really good bracket, some of you guys are in my Discord. You can come by the stream tonight. I got a link that you can click on, fill out your bracket, and good luck to everybody.
All right. Sounds good. March Madness is gonna be crazy. Well, that's all we got for today. We're gonna go